doing some self-reflection and just something that's very, I'll just say like right off the rip, it's very difficult for me to talk about this, which means that I should probably talk about it, I think. Um, I don't think that's always the rule, but it's something that I'm personally going through. And then I thought about it and I said, well, I should share this. Number one, because I don't want to share this, but two, because I think that everyone can benefit from it, because what I am struggling with, everyone can struggle with at a point in time. And quite frankly, it was something that I really, it's so weird for me because it's something that I really didn't see coming or thought, hey, this is not something I'm going to ever deal with because of my experiences or my background or whatever. I'm immune to this. And that is actually the problem. Thinking that it wouldn't happen is the problem.
Hey, if you're enjoying the content, please consider subscribing. Give us a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. Let us know what type of content you'd like to see us cover next. Thanks.
And the thing that I'm struggling with is ego. And some of you might go, I get it, I really get it. Some of you might be like, what? I don't know. But the point is that it's become very apparent to me that ego is one of the most dangerous things that I'm going to face or am facing that will affect my future and where I want to go, as far as like how I want my family life to operate, how I want my professional life to operate, and what I want to achieve. When I really reflect on it, so much of the difficulty that I face, so much of the issues that I have with my family, whether it be extended family or personal family, are rooted in my own ego. And so I've been trying to do a deep study into what is ego, and I'll cover that because you can mean many things when you say ego, so I'll be specific about what I'm talking about. What is ego? How is it harmful? And ultimately, what do you do about it? Right? Because I think everyone here has a certain idea of success. They have this idea of this is what I would like to achieve, or this is the kind of existence I want to live, and this, if I achieve this thing, it would be, I would say that would be success. I would have achieved some level of success if I achieve this or get to this level. And when I look at those things for myself, I go, you know what? Ego is going to stand in the way of me being able to do that. And it's almost paradoxical in my mind. So what I'm talking about with ego is literally the perception of yourself, how you view yourself. And this, why I say it's paradoxical, is because there's this idea behind, like the book that Mark recommended, like As a Man Thinketh. To be successful, you need to have a positive self-image of yourself. There's a certain mindset that you have to follow. And there's things that you need to picture. There's things that you want to have. There's visualization. There's all these success techniques. And at the same time, those things carry with them a very real danger in the form of an inflated ego. So I'm going to try to break some of that down. The first point I'll make is that you can only perform at your best when you're absent of ego. So there's positive self-talk, which I think is a great thing, okay? But not when it becomes a lie. Not when it becomes this overinflated sense of self. That's where the danger lies. So there's a positive, you don't want to talk negatively to yourself. I'm not saying deflate your ego by telling yourself you're worthless. I don't think that that's productive in any way. However, I do think that there needs to be some honesty there in order for you to truly grow. The sports world, though I don't know a whole lot about sports, but I do know enough, the sports world is full of these stories where people became champions, viewed themselves as unbeatable just to suffer massive defeat, right? What they would do is they would win, people would give them praise, their view of themselves would become overinflated, and then ultimately an opponent would come that they underestimated because they're the champ, they're untouchable, whatever narrative you want to talk about, and it leads to their defeat. And usually when they are defeated, it's in a huge way. So in that sense, they achieve their goal and then they lose their goal. everything they work for is lost in an instant because they have this overinflated sense of self. So another thing that's real interesting about ego, and I noticed this about myself, is what it does is it detaches you from the rest of the world. So when you're operating out of your ego, you view yourself as separate from everyone else. And so you go, this affects me, or this is how I sit in the world. And it's almost like you view your opinions, the way that you perceive things, the way that you operate as entirely, there's you and then there's everyone else, right? And what that does is it creates you as like a singularity. You are special. Everything operates around you, your philosophy, the way that you think, right? And then you operate from that point. So what that can do is it can lead to self-absorption. It's something I've fallen into. It's something I'm into. It's something that happens regularly. So you can be in a conversation with someone and you feel the need to cut them off, right? Because you already know the answer. I do this all the time. And it's not a good thing because the other person could be adding real value, right? The other person could be fixing to give you a recommendation or some insight. But if you already think you know, if your sense of ego is so inflated, right, that you because of your position as manager, because of your position as boss, these are labels. They're bullshit. These labels are bullshit, right? We give them to ourselves to say, okay, this is a certain level of status that I've achieved that you have not. I am an entrepreneur. I am this. I am this. I am this. And what it does is it gives me seniority over you. And what we do is we take, in an establishment, I think it's necessary to have some levels, right? Because that's how things operate. But we take it a step further and go, well, it gives me seniority over you as a human being. It makes me better than you as a person. And when we start falling into that type of talk, it's self-defeating. So I'm not saying any of this because, oh, it helps with like a group mentality, and it can. But I'm saying this is literally self-defeating. This literally hurts yourself. So if you want to get to your goals, if you want to achieve greatness, it's like you have to become less. You have to balance this. And I'll talk more about balance in a minute, but this is something that I've run into. The next thing we do is we create stories about ourselves. All right? We create these stories about ourselves that simply are not true. They're simply not true. We want to be perceived in a certain way, and so we try to become that, and then we convince ourselves through self-talk that we are those things. Now, this is hard because you have to balance this with, if you want to be let's just say you want to be a great musician, it does help to visualize yourself as a great musician. It does help to try to feel what it feels like to be great, to believe in oneself, to have confidence. I'm not talking about confidence here, and that's why this is such a hard balance. You have to maintain confidence while also maintaining humility. This is why it's kicking my butt, is because I've practiced so much of let's get this confidence, let's believe in this. But what happens is you trick your brain into thinking you've accomplished something you have not yet accomplished. So your view of yourself becomes hyperinflated, and what happens is we create these stories, sometimes these false narratives of describing yourself as who you want to be versus who you are. So you walk around like you've done the thing, but you haven't done it yet. You've done it in your head 1,000 times. And so what I'm really talking about is this jump over from, hey, this is in my head, this is positive thinking, this is what I want to achieve. I'm talking about when it starts to affect others, it starts to affect relationships, and it starts to affect, If Sam here decides that he wants to become a real estate mogul and own a bunch of real estate in Greenville, it's good for him to imagine what that feels like, to think about the process, to try to get into it. But when Sam starts walking around like he's a multi-billionaire and addressing people, as lesser than him, which wouldn't even be okay if you did, but if you start taking on the persona and allowing that to affect other people, what it's going to do is literally stop you from becoming that real estate mogul. That's going to be your biggest obstacle in achieving that. So I think we can all fall into that as well. If I'm saying some of these things and you're like, doesn't apply to me, I would say check that. That's why this is so tricky. You'll listen to this and you're like, oh, I've got that under control. It's literally your ego telling you that you've got this under control. I've listened to a million talks like this and said, oh man, stinks for people who are like that. And it's literally my ego telling me I'm not like that when I am, you know? And so when it comes down to your wife sitting and talking to you like mine has and saying, look, you have an ego problem. And I'm not going to let you, because I love you, I'm not going to let you, you know, continue down this path. And that leads to another point, which is criticism. Being able to objectively take criticism will help you keep your ego in check. We live in a society where we hate criticism. It's so negative, and we get our feelings hurt, and I want to cry and I want to curl up, and I don't like the criticism. And who is this person to think that they could criticize me? That is your ego telling you that you are not subject to criticism, which would ultimately mean that you've got it all figured out, that you have no imperfections, you know? But we take it so negatively when someone criticizes us, when it can be so constructive. Now, it's nasty. I don't want to hear Amanda Brock tell me about something negative about myself. And oftentimes I might, if she were to do that, I'll lash out and say, well, you, you know, that's our first thing. They say, you know, you're this, this, and this. No, well, you do this, this, and this. Like, I want to hit you back, versus really developing the skill. The strongest among us will develop the skill to take that in. I'm not saying you won't get mad about it or aggravated. I think you will. But if you can go back and really allow that to sink in and go, was this person correct? If your immediate thought is, they don't know what they're talking about, they're an idiot, which is usually my immediate thought, check your ego. I would say that's your first sign that that's probably your ego talking. Because even if they're wrong, I bet there's a bit of truth in what they're saying. That is your opportunity to improve. That is your opportunity to get better. Because even if you think they're wrong, it's still how you're being perceived, you know, which is what I've run into. Someone will say, well, oh, you're this, this, and this, or maybe a family member will tell me that, and I'm like, oh, no, I'm just being helpful. I'm helping with this. I'm giving this and this and this because I know the intention of my heart. So I say, oh, that's not what I am. But I fail to realize it doesn't matter what I am necessarily. It does matter, but the point is I'm being perceived as something else entirely different than what I want, which means that I'm not being effective in my communication. I'm not being effective in my relationships. And then it goes back to where I started again. This will affect my ability to achieve the success that I want to achieve, right? No matter what it is. So there's that. The other thing that we do is, and I am so guilty of this, is attention seeking and approval seeking, of saying, you know, in a world of social media, we'll do anything to just get likes, to get interaction. When we come to business, marketing, that really matters. Getting attention really matters with marketing. But when that carries over into your personal life, and again, as I address all of these things, I'm talking about a fair balance, not that it has to be one or the other. I'm not saying, you know, shy away from all attention and attention is bad. I'm not saying that. I'm saying when you get caught up in this attention and approval seeking becomes a part of who you are, it becomes this natural thing that you do. What are you seeking this approval for? What about you is wanting to do this? That will lead you to having to be the most important person in the room, having the most important opinion. That's what leads you to cutting people off and stating your opinion above theirs. That's what leads you to talking louder than other people. It stops you from being able to sit and just absorb what someone is saying, because what you have to say is so important and you have this amazing point to make or this magical insight. And the whole reason behind it is you're really wanting approval or attention, you know, acknowledgement that your insight is so amazing, which then feeds your ego and perpetuates the entire process over and over. It becomes a snowball, it grows, and before you know it, it can be out of control, and the very people that you were talking to won't even talk to you anymore, so the conversation doesn't even matter because they'll just walk away. Like, this guy is a, you know, fill in the blank with any negative type of description. This guy's a, you know, we have a lot of those words that we can use. The next thing is assuming that you already know. Assuming that you already know. So the next thing I think to fight your ego would be to actually always maintain yourself as a student, right? Here's another thing that I can tell personally that I've struggled with. I've been a student so long that I've gained a ton of information, right? And then I think that information makes me smarter than you. because I was a student. I was so humble, and I was such a good student that I've taken in all this information. You didn't take in that information that I have, and so therefore I'm smarter than you. It's the opposite of what we want to achieve. It's always a sense of humility and saying, I have taken in this information, and I want to, I want to provide it when it's necessary or needed, but right now maybe I need to just listen to you, right? So I had one of my mentors describe it to me as playing a game of poker. Like life is a game of poker. And what we do is we all too often show our cards. I'm not talking about being dishonest when I say hide your cards, but I'm saying there's some things that you want to just keep close chested, right? There's some things that you don't need to reveal. Everyone doesn't need to know your opinion just because we're talking about, I don't know, we're talking about the best brand of pizza and someone's excited about pizza. Maybe you should just let them talk about pizza versus revealing to them your expertise on pizza. Or I don't know why I said that. I said that because I ate a pizza last night, but it could be anything, right? But you have to be an expert on all levels, right? And that can create a problem. So the other thing is playing the long game by serving others. And this is, if you think you're better than other people, if you think you're smarter, if you think you're more talented, if you think you're better looking, if you think you're whatever, right? It's very hard to serve those people. And you may think you're serving those people by imparting your wisdom that you have, right? Your ego tells you you're so great, you're so amazing, you have all this to offer them. They should just shut up and listen to you, right? When all they needed was for you to be a human being in their presence, right? When you could serve them by meeting them in their need, no matter what that is. I am horrible at this at the moment, and I plan on getting better at it. But, looking at someone who maybe they have a drug addiction, maybe they're homeless. I'm using radical examples to prove a point, and going, well, if they would have done this, this, and this, and this, luckily I'm not that because I did this, this, and this, and I knew better, right? Fall into that trap of labeling this person versus just meeting them as a human being through humility. See, if he didn't have this ego, if he wasn't built up so much to say that, oh, I'm so much better than this person, you would go to this person and try to see where they are, how they got there, and how you can serve them, right? And not even viewing them as this person that needs help, this person who's in such dire. You just view them as a human being, as another person that's just, it's you, right? It goes back to, am I detached from the world around me? Because if you're a part of the world around you, then this person sitting there struggling, that's you, right? That's you. And you're not separate from that. You're not greater than that. We're all part of the same thing. But society can tell us otherwise because of the school we went to, because of the color of our skin, because of our religious background, because of who our mom and daddy were, right? All these things give us labels which inflate our ego and says, I'm this and you're this. I'm this and you're this. And then we act like we know what we're talking about because it makes us feel important. It makes us feel great. It makes us feel worthy. It makes us feel all these things which are wonderful to feel. I felt them all. When you walk around and people constantly tell you, hey, you're great at this and you're good at this and you're good at this, you begin to believe it. And compliments are good, but you have to stay grounded in who you really are and realize that that is the enemy. That's the enemy to your success. Again, I'm talking about all these things because I'm dealing with all these things, and it sucks. It sucks. It's like coming to grips with the fact that you're an addict of some sort, and going, oh, no. I didn't even realize, right? I didn't even realize. And then once, and there's ego, people can be subjected to ego really in 3 different phases. Like think about your professional career. There's the climb up, ego can start attacking you. Then you reach a level of success. And when you are successful, ego can really creep in, like in a big way. I'm successful because I'm better than you. And I'm better than you, and I'm better than you. And if you just do like me, you can be successful too, right? That's what we fall into. That will lead to our destruction. And then we reach a terrible part where where ego takes over us in failure. I failed, and it's this person's fault, or this person's fault, or it wasn't my thing, or this and this happened to me, right? Victim mentality, right? This happened to me. So ego can really grab you. You don't have to be the head of a company or some person who's achieved some, type of public success to be subject to ego. Ego can happen in your own home. Ego can happen to anyone in any phase of life at any time. And I'm telling you, it's cancerous and it's dangerous. And I never saw it coming, because I would always say, I'm a person who has my ego in check, or this and this and this, just to objectively look and go, this thing is becoming hyperinflated. And maybe if I can become aware of it now, that means that it's not too far gone. Thank God, right? Because if it's too far gone, you just go, I don't have an ego problem. When the truth is we all do. Some may be worse. I would say mine's probably worse than everyone in this room. But everyone has an ego thing that they can keep in check, at least to something. Now, I'm not saying be absent of all ego. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying crush all your ego, meditate all day, become one with the earth. It's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that. I'm not even saying that's one possible or even super productive. I'm just saying it's about balance. I'm saying monitor it like you would anything else. Everything in moderation, including moderation, right? That's my point here, is where is it? If it's in check and you can do a little bit better, there's some of you that I perceive to have very little ego at all, and it's amazing. It's really great. And it makes me want to be around you, because you don't have this hyperinflated sense of ego. But because I do, when I'm around you, I'll just trump you with my words or my thoughts or my whatever, because you're not expressing your ego, so you're easy prey for me to just mine on you, right? That sucks. That shouldn't be that way. And I plan on getting better about that. The other thing is, and I keep going because I've been diving really deep into this, but ego can turn into pride. And what pride does is it can take an achievement that is good and turn it into a weapon that will defeat yourself. And when pride has the ability to do this, because what you can do is you start identifying, you say, I'm smart, I'm a hard worker, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a hustler, I'm a this, I'm a fill in the blank. It's a label that we attach meaning to, that we then use to give us superiority over someone else. And that is dangerous. That is the cheese on the mousetrap that we think is food, right? We go, ooh, that's good food. That is bait, right? That's bait that will destroy you. Don't take that bait, right? Understand that you've achieved something. Understand that you are great. Every one of us is great, right? We just don't have to walk around like we're the best thing in the whole world. Keep it under wraps. So if there's self-loathing and negative talk, and then hyperinflated self-talk on this end, right? I'm saying try to find a middle ground. Some of you might have the opposite. Some of you might be more towards negative self-talk and self-loathing, and in that place, you might even want to feed your ego a little bit, okay? That could be the case. But some of us might be on this side of the spectrum where it's all positive self-talk, all positive thinking exercises, and everything we accomplish reaffirms our position in society, reaffirms if we meet someone, here's a good one, if we meet someone who we perceive to be greater than us, we won't have anything to do with them. We only hang around people who we perceive to be lesser than us because they give us an inflated sense of self, right? If someone challenges us, or you meet someone who's better than you at something you want to be good at, if we shy away from those people versus acknowledging they're better than us, that's a pretty clear sign that there's an issue, right? Because we should be attracted to those people because they can help us get to where we want to go. So ultimately, I just wanted to share this just because it's something that I'm dealing with. We talk about success and we talk about things. This is a very raw and real type of thing. Maybe if it's not something that you've struggled with, this is something you can put in the back of your mind that as you progress or go in a certain direction, really anywhere in your life, that you see these signs popping up. If any of my words can help you, just go, oh, here's a sign of, something popping up. Maybe it's just a conversation with your spouse or significant other, and you find yourself using certain words or having certain habits, or getting into an argument and assuming you're, again, fill in the blank. I know I'm being abstract here, but it can apply in so many different places. Maybe stop and go, oh, this is what he was talking about. Is my ego talking here, or is this something else? And so I think sometimes just sitting on things before you act, is a good way to not act out in ego. Because once you get this feeling of status, or you get these labels, like I said, successful, wealthy, entrepreneur, all these things, you want to keep them because they feel good, right? But like most things that feel good, they can only be good in moderation. Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, and so that's what I'm dealing with. Not saying that I'll be perfect, not saying that it's going to be a process, but I'm trying to become aware of it and say, how do I get better at this? It's a weak point for me, and it's something that I want to continue to work on. And hopefully you will notice it as you interact with me, and then you'll also see me fail miserably at it when I talk over you. I was talking to a guy last night about it that I consider to be one of the most humble people that I know, but he's also successful. And I was like, man, you are so good at this is just such a good example of, I was like, okay, gosh, I got a long ways to go. I was like, you're so good at this. And he goes, I got a book you want to read. He goes, I got a book recommendation for you. It's going to be a good book. You're going to want to read it. And I said, Ego is the Enemy. And he said, no. He goes, it's called Relentless. And I was like, see, that's my problem. As soon as you started talking about it, I just assumed I already read it. I haven't read it. I should have shut up and just let him talk. But I had to assume I already knew and then show him, because I was thinking, I was like, what made me say that? What made me say that is to show him that I'm well read. I already know. You see what I mean? That's dangerous. That's idiotic. That's self-defeating. When I should have just shut my mouth and said, tell me about this book. And even if it was a book I had read, I should have still shut up, because he might have had insight about that book that I didn't get. He's the one I want to be like, yet I still feel the need to cut him off. That's a problem, right?
How do you cut off people who have ego problems?
How do you what?
How do you cut off people if somebody has ego and then somebody's talking egoistically? How do you cut them off?
When I say cut them off, I don't mean like get them out of my life. I mean cut them off as in
Somebody's talking.
like talking over them. Yeah, I don't mean like get them out of your life.
So what should be our reaction? Somebody, let's say, you are with your ego and talking to me, and then I'm listening. I'm full of your bullshit, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I want to say, okay, stop it. How do I cut off?
You listen. You don't cut them off. You listen. You listen. And that's what I'm learning. At least that's where I think I am now. That's the advice the guy gave me last night. He said sometimes people will spew things that are just simply wrong, and you listen just to see where they are. And he said you just sit and listen. He said that life is a game of poker, and you hold your cards very close to your chest, realizing that you don't have to reveal your cards. In other words, you don't have to reveal your thoughts or your opinions. You only reveal your cards when it's very high stakes, and it's almost never high stakes, right? Because people will start forming opinions about you that are wrong, all these different things, just because you constantly have to show everyone what you're thinking, and because your opinion matters so much. And it can come from a good place. It can come from, I'm being helpful. Other times you realize, and I've realized this too, this is a good example, because one of the guys I talked to last night about it is very fit, like way fitter than me or anything I've ever achieved. This guy he had a 30-minute conversation with me the other day while he was jumping rope, if that tells you anything. I didn't know he wasn't even.
It was like 25.
He wasn't even winded. No, that was you. But I was like, this is nuts. And he said sometimes people say things and they ask questions they don't want the answers to. They don't want the answers to. So someone will say, man, how do I... They're just talking, maybe because they want to talk. They don't want to lecture, and they really don't even want the answer. They're just talking. I fall into that all the time. Someone will be like, well, I'm so frustrated I can't lose weight. So I just go into like a 30-minute monologue about macro and micronutrients and all, because I'm thinking this is going to be super helpful. That person doesn't really care. Sometimes they do. I'm not saying they always don't, but I'm saying there's lots of cases where they're just having conversation. They're just talking. Maybe they're saying that because someone else in the room might agree, and they can talk about how frustrating this process of losing weight or doing a good diet has been. But now I've entered and went into a 30-minute monologue, and walked away going, man, that was really helpful for them. Now they know, you know, and what they really think when I walk off is, what a jackass. Or he thinks he knows it all, or like he has the answers for everything. Yeah, he thinks he's so much better than me, doesn't he? Right? Now there are some people I think that can go, oh man, that was tremendous. I think that's different. Someone saying, how do I lose weight, is very different than someone coming up and going, hey, look, I know you have experience in this and you have a background in this, and I really want to pick your brain. Is there information you can give me on this? And that's when you can come out and go as deep as you want to get into, you know, at least for me, Sam, I don't know the right answer, but at least for me, that's what I'm thinking.